Welcome back to Doctor Who, Nick Lenz's Doctor Who review, episode number 49. Yes, the very next episode is going to be the 50th episode of this series, which, good on me. When am I going to review that one? You'll find out later, because here's the thing about the very next story I'm going to be discussing after this one. It's a very important story when it comes to Doctor Who, and I'm very much looking forward to discussing it for my 50th episode. But this one, discussing the finale for the Black Guardian trilogy, Enlightenment. I mainly watched the special edition version. Let me point things about the special edition version. Number one, there is no cliffhangers. Well, there's always you think would be cliffhangers, but they took out all the ending credits. Pretty much what they did is they took this 4-part story, which probably was a little bit longer than it actually was, and it is edited together. And by the way, the version I watched was only an hour and 14 minutes. I'm like, damn, that's really short for a story. Yes, now it's explained by the director. Yes, they got apparently people who made this DVD got the original director who directed this 4-part back in 1983 to come back and give updated special effects. I'm like, okay, interesting. And they did that. They pretty much took out the ending credits of all the episodes. For episodes 1 through 3, they took all those out. They kept the ending credits of the 4th episode, yes. But, like, all the credits episodes that would split these up into 4 parts, those were all removed. And it's basically it's like watching a full movie. Now, I should also point out, though, this particular serial is very beautifully shot. Like, it looks gorgeous. I love the look, basically, of the story. Now, the story basically is called, the thing starts off with the Doctor communicating with the White Guardian. I'm like, this is interesting. Fun fact, the last time the Doctor talked to the Guardian in the history of Doctor Who, at this point, for the show, was back in the Rebus operation, this very start of the Key to Time story arc. As a matter of fact, that actually gets referenced at the end of the very story here. So, he's trying to talk to him, and he's interrupted by the Black Guardian. Now, I should point out that the Doctor does know who the White Guardian is, but for some reason, he doesn't question the fact, hey, why are you wearing different outfit, and why the heck is there a bird in your hair? Yeah, for some reason, both the Black and White Guardians have got these birds in their hair. Actually, if you think about it, their hair is basically feathers. Now, why in the world do they look like this? Don't know. It's by far the most strangest thing. Yeah, and apparently, it shows later on in the story when they show these two together in person. Apparently, the White Guardian is shorter than the Black Guardian. I'm like, that's interesting. By the way, the Black Guardian himself, he doesn't do much anything in the story. He does not influence the story at all. Mostly, but he's there just to try to kill Turlo. That's the whole purpose of him. And this is, I'll get some more of him in a minute. So, they had to turn that power really receive message from the White Guardian. But they couldn't get the message, and it's all about, like, these coordinates. And then when they dematerialize the TARDIS, they end up in a ship's cargo hold. Yes, a ship's cargo hold. And they look around, and they think they're on Earth, because basically these are shipmen from the early they say Edwardian era. They say 19th century. That actually is kind of correct based upon how... Now, they explain the fact this is actually a yacht. Yes, it is in fact a yacht. Despite the fact this looks like it could be from the early 20th century, but for some reason it's from the 19th century, which doesn't make any sense at all. They look outside, and they're in outer space. Now, the other ships, basically, which are from various time periods, one of those songs from the time period of the Romans, one is from the Golden Age of Piracy, the Buccaneer, that's what it's called. I'm trying to think whatever basically ships that were. There's lots of sailing ships here. Oh, and the crew, the people who were basically not the officers, they apparently were just brought to the ship by the first mate, who is very creepy, and he smiles so much, even though he doesn't feel anything per se. They explain who these people are a little bit later. Apparently, these people are, in fact, get this, Eternals. They're from eternity. I'm like, okay. Now, do I think that the BBC ripped off Marvel Comics Eternals? No. I highly doubt it. It just probably they probably thought it was a good name. So, I highly doubt the writer of this one. Let's see. The writer of this one probably would be Barbara Craig. Oh, the director of this one is Fiona Cumming. That's the name of the director who directed this one. And apparently these Eternals are mind readers, and they can easily sense people for like miles away, which is interesting to say the least. So, now they have it where the Doctor and Turtle lead the TARDIS, and they have it with the regular crew while Tegan stays with the TARDIS, though she leaves because of the first mate, who, this I thought was kind of a weird introduction for him. He puts his hands on whatever this thing is for this TV screen. I thought this was kind of weird. I'm like, what the heck is this? And he's like, oh, you're a stowaway. I'll put you in irons. Then she runs away. And he's like, okay. Why would you put her in irons for? She just came on board and you want to put her in irons? Seriously, what is wrong with you, dude? So then, of course, she reunited with the Doctor. Turlo, for some reason, is left in the room with the crew, while the Doctor and her are basically having dinner with the Captain. And I mentioned about rough winds, probably solar winds, per se. And apparently this race, get this, is done in the middle of the solar system. I'm like, that's interesting. Oh, and they pass by planets on this course. And the first planet they come across is Venus. Yes, frickin' Venus of all things. Yep, so they do have a brief dinner thing here. Oh, and here's the thing though, I should put something about the DVD here. Now, the first picture here, that's pretty accurate. The second picture, that is actually mostly accurate, but the bottom picture. Look at the bottom picture. We see the Doctor, he has like a knife to his throat and a gun to his like belly. Yeah, that does not happen in the story. Nope, that is completely made up. The Doctor at no point is threatened like this. And the way it looks like apparently they stormed the TARDIS. Or at least basically the hallway of TARDIS. But no. With the exception of the Doctor and his companions, nobody goes aboard the TARDIS. Then, and of course, one point they try to leave. And they show Tegan her room, which is like stuff to remember, including a picture of her aunt. And I think this is the actress who played her aunt back in Legopolis. I'm like, that was interesting. I'm surprised they brought that in. Oh, by the way, the guy who was the first mate, Mark, I think his name is, he apparently is infatuated with Tegan. At one point, TV asks him, are you in love with me? He's like, what is love? I'm like, that's interesting. Yes, so the whole thing about the whole ship is correct for Ed Warner, except for one thing. Electronics. Yep, electronics. They never had electronics like this during the Wardian era, wherever this comes from. Yeah, and of course that they have a Roman ship, and here's the thing. They do point out, though, one thing that's inaccurate about the ship. The captain's ring. That's actually from the Spaniards in the 17th century. And the captain's like, good eye. Because it probably is. And then and then of course they basically just fly through Venus, just top off the atmosphere. And then here's the thing though, the Roman ship explodes. And apparently, get this, sabotage is not against the rules of this race. Apparently it's expected. Okay. So then at one point at a few points, you have Turlo trying to contact the Black Guardian, asking for help. And the first time he does, the Black Guardian strangles him. Yeah, you see, he has like claw marks on his neck, which, by the way, he just brushes it off. Yeah, doesn't mind the fact that a cosmic being tried to murder him. Yes, Turlo is written this way. It's almost like the story is written to be Turlo's story. It's like he's the star of the show. Tegan doesn't do a lot here. I appreciate, though, they give a little bit more to do than they did in the last story. There is a reference here at the beginning to Terminus. No mention Nyssa, per se. Like, oh, Nissa's gone. Okay. No mention of her for some reason. Not sure why, though. But he mentioned Terminus, but not Nyssa leaving. Yeah, I thought that was kind of weird. And I'm still curious of why the heck she left it. Why Sarah Sutton left the show. Yeah. So, they pretty much they try to leave, but Tarek disappears. What it actually is, it's actually in the Doctor's head, in his mind, the whole time while searching for the damn thing. And then of course they try to leave the ship, and then Turlo actually does succeed leaving the ship, and he's in a spacesuit, so he hops off board the ship. Man overboard! And then he's picked up by the Buccaneer, who the captain develops a fascination with him. Yes, and they're pirates. Yes, freaking pirates. And she at one point has his hand chained up on the ceiling like this. And here's the thing, though. Normally this was saying basically where not exactly was close per se, but she might be intimidating him. And apparently he mentions his mind is close off. This is not exactly explained. So later on they show this the special room. And of course he goes to the room later and he hears a voice, and he hears the voice basically that she listens to. Yeah, it's a Black Guardian influencing this whole thing. Yeah. Behind the scenes. Mostly. I'd say he's played a little more tiny role than he was in the previous story. Then at one point they have a reception on board. You have Tegan wear a dress. I'm like, that's interesting. Probably the first time the actors wore a skirt in the show since the previous season. Now, yes, they note that the doctor is like, oh, she's quite beautiful. It's like, oh, really? Yeah, the doctor just sees her as a friend. He doesn't see her as a romantic love interest. Yeah, that's the thing with the doctor. He may love humanity, but he just had no romantic interest. Well, that's usually how a lot of them are depicted. Usually they think of them as father figures. I mean, the first one actually was his own companion, was the 8th Doctor. Yep, he was the first one. Paul McGann was the first one to do that. Yep. So, then of course she's walking in her room, ooh, we're gonna see some scandalous stuff. Nope, just briefly brainwash her to put a jewel in her head. Well, jewel in her little mini crown that she's wearing because she's a princess. Then the Doctor, Mariner, and Tegan are asked to leave immediately. Charles stays on board but gets into the vault anyways. And then, of course, they chase us to the end. Wow, that was quick. Apparently, beyond the reception ship, apparently drags us to the very end, which has this beautiful city of Enlightenment. I'm like, this was interesting. And then, of course, oh, we go to the room, oh, we got to get rid of somebody. And of course, they see 2 people pop on board. Yeah, it's actually the female captain and her first mate. And the Doctor is on board because, of course, they free it, the thing was mine. And because somehow they left on board the ship. So they actually report, and they show Enlightenment. It's this little ball thing. And of course, we see the Black Guardian and the White Guardian just have a seat. And of course, they basically do polite bickering with each other. Oh, I'm better than you. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm better than you. Then, of course, ooh, he's under my contract. He's under my control. It's you have 2 choices. Give me that, or give me the Doctor. Then he just shoves the thing onto the Black Guardian. Set the man on fire! Yes, seriously. Sets the man on fire, supposedly killing the Black Guardian. And this apparently terminates his contract with the Black Guardian. So his white crystal he's had since Marion Day has turned black, and he destroys the damn thing. And it's never mentioned again for the rest of the series. So the rest of the time you've seen the show, yeah, never seen again. The director thought this was actually the end of season 20. If you're really curious, though, no, there's actually one more story left. Yeah, I'm not sure why the director of the show thought this was the final story of the season. When it was the King's Demons, that was the final story. I don't know why they held this one for. That was kind of weird. And of course, basically, like, oh, you beat him twice, we have one more time, and nope, not seeing again the rest of this series. Because season 20, basically about 8 years later, actually 6 years later, the series would end. Brought back, and there's no mention of the Black Guardian. They do bring up the story he wants the key of time, and he followed that Enlightenment. But as far as I can tell, I've not heard anybody bring back the Black Guardian. Well, they can't bring back the actor who plays him because he passed away 2 years after the story aired. Yeah, just by sheer coincidence, the year he passed away, that was the start of Colin Baker's very brief run in the series. That was during his run for the series. That was interesting. Yep, I think it was during his, well, it was during his first full season half of the show. But in the case of the Black Iron trilogy as a whole, I thought the trilogy was really good. If you think about this one, I would say Taking It was written a little better than the story she was in the last. The last one she did practically nothing. This one she did some stuff, but not a lot. But this one definitely felt like it was Turtle's story. And you can definitely say with this one, his character development, he's pretty much, his character's got a boost. I wouldn't say he's completely wrapped up at this point in time. They eventually get Wabago's planet, but not really. They end up basically going to medieval England to take care of King John and reunite with Master for one last time in the story. Yes, for some reason. I'm not sure why, though. But in the case 20th season as a whole, basically, if you're curious, though, like, with this one here, I have only 3 stories left. Like, wow, 3. That's interesting. Yes, it is. But yeah, that's particular view. Next up is 2 comic corners, and it's on to another one on my smartphone. Okay, next video. Bye.